Okay, hello. You're live. You might be live. Okay. The it's a little warm, and I think this shirt shrank in the wash a little, but we're gonna press on. So ugliest house in America, or whatever it's called, just wrapped up, and once again they did a renovation on a house that needed mostly interior work and was not the largest space possible. And you just know when you're watching through, that a bunch of your favorites are going to get eliminated. So for those of you who are new to this channel, I haven't done a decor video in a while, and obviously I haven't done this show since a year ago or whenever it wrapped up last time. And if you're new to that show or you've never seen it, you don't know what's going on. They travel around and try to find the ugliest house and give them a remake for $150,000, which is actually a pretty good sum of money if you didn't have, that much exterior work and such that needed to be done. But I don't personally know anybody who has that kind of money lying around. $2,000 would be, kind of, what can I get? A couch. Okay, we're done. Maybe, obviously, renovation being a different thing than redecorating. So I had talked about this in detail in the previous installments that nobody watched. So I won't go too far into it, but this channel, like I said, if you're new here, I mostly focus on the decor aspect of it, not the construction aspect of it. Or certain houses do have a certain aesthetic and form, as I've discussed. Like if this was less of a modern house and more of a Victorian house, I would maybe take a different decorating approach to it to try and work with the aesthetic. But if you have like an Adobe Pueblo looking place and you try to make it look like a beach cottage on the inside, people are going to think it's a little incongruous or whatever. Yada yada yada. Okay. And then of course decor, we're mostly talking about furniture and furnishings. So we'll come back to that. Let me back it up. So in the house, they divided the country into regions, and the regions have changed slightly, and they don't go to every single, state or whatever every single time. So this time in the Midwest, I don't know, it says Maximalist Nightmare here for some reason. I think that's almost all of them. I think that when they're redecorating, they're not always going with what my taste would be either, and usually not as minimalist as maybe a lot of people would prefer. And this time they didn't do California at all, so no, or some mid-century modern, but not as much Brady Bunch houses as maybe you'd expect, and not a lot of Victorian houses, but some kind of older antique or landmark kind of houses. But this season, it seemed like there were a lot of architectural originals, where the person had their own vision and they ran with it. So the one that the two that didn't win, to be, again, if you haven't watched the show, spoiler alerts, I'm going to be announcing the winners, even though the thing just aired. So, if you didn't see it, you didn't see it. Bummer. Why are you watching this video? I don't know. So one of them that won was a bank that had been turned into a house, and so it was not very functional, but it wasn't unattractive in a way. It was kind of a nice look. I would almost like to have a crack at a space like that and see what I could actually do with it without losing my mind the way these people were. Keep in mind, these people knowingly bought these properties too. And they liked some aspects of it, or they liked the price, but in some cases they overpaid or paid over the asking, I guess I should say. And then one of them was the Pizza Hut brick, and that was close to a mid-century, but not a typical mid-century. And then the inside was all this like disgusting carpeting and such. And as the homeowner, you just have to kind of suck it up and tear that out. But she did like the weird, funky exterior, so she bought it. But then she found out that the interior was not as livable as you'd expect. And then the one that made the semifinals was the Flintstone Cave, which was literally like that Tom Sawyer Rocks at Disneyland kind of thing going on, where it's a children's playground more than an actual house, and it had its own ball bin. What do you call the rumpus? Bouncy castle kind of thing. I don't know. Yeah, so something like that. It's you're most of the time you're just going to have to bulldoze that and start over. I don't know why you would invest in that unless you really, 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 really know how to rebuild your own homes or whatever. So then, and I think all three of those were in Ohio. Then Mid-Atlantic was New York and Philly. And, well, spoiler alert. So one of those was the Dragon Victorian, I had called it, which I don't know. I think I thought I would know what that word meant again when I read the notes, but I'll probably rewatch it. They did 3 episodes, and 2 of them were condensed, and so one of them had more bonus footage than the other, but I didn't sit through all 3 hours to see 10 minutes of bonus footage, so I didn't see all the bonus footage, so I don't remember. Another one was another Victorian, and what does this say? Restore versus newer something. I can't read my own writing. Lens, lose, laws, I don't know. Gray, Regency. So the decor again must have been something. A lot of these, what I was talking about last year was that a lot of these were spaces that certain people would really resonate with them, but they just ended up with the wrong owners. Whereas others of them, they're in disrepair. Okay. So I don't remember which ones are in disrepair and which ones aren't, but so Dragon Victorian probably wasn't in terrible disrepair, even though it's probably an older house. This one, on the other hand, was the brothers, and they had all this weird kind of funky New Orleans. Oh, New Orleans. That's what that says. New Orleans Regency was my takeaway with their sculptures and stuff. And then the small townhouse one, I don't know, I called it college crap because I guess it was all art students and it was near Philly or whatever. That was the semifinalist here, and spoiler alert, that's the one that finally wins, so cut to the chase. Then in New England, that one was like all art collages and stuff like peppered in the walls being mostly bricks. And so in the bricks and the mortar, they had put bottle caps and little sculptures and toys and junk and whatever. And the thing had a bathroom in the entryway and some other stuff. Then there was the New England-ish, which they meant New Jersey and Massachusetts. So 2 of them were in Massachusetts. Old church redo, so similar to the bank thing, kind of. But a lot of these churches are kind of churches in an atypical sense. They're not like a Catholic church where it's rows of pews and then a cry room and a changing room. It's more of a congregational church. So instead, like a Catholic church, you have a rectory that's usually side building with living quarters for the priest and the service staff. All that living quarters kind of stuff is already in there, but nobody might live there. Maybe the pastor's family lives there, maybe not. But there's a stove and a kitchenette and a rumpus room down below and kind of stuff like that going on. So it's more like a true house, but with weird big empty space and little small ancillary rooms and stuff. So it's workable, but not perfect. And the decor, of course, is, you know, theme ish, for whatever that denomination might like. So old church redo, and then funky bunker, which, yeah, I don't remember, but the name should imply that it's another one of those concrete buildings that usually have too much round space or something going on. Yeah, I don't remember which one was funky bunker, but the one that won, I believe, was called Psychedelic Shakespeare, was my name for it, and another kind of Renaissance. Removable decor, etc. versus renovation. Yeah, we know. Yeah. So Funky Bunker in Massachusetts didn't win, and Psychedelic Shakespeare did. And I think that was one where there's just kind of a lot of weird paintings and stuff that was meant to be murals that didn't quite make it. But again, the finalist, that was not the finalist. That was only the semifinalist. In the Southwest, you had the Amarillo Castle, which was basically a castle. They'd had a castle last season too, in Nevada or California, maybe. Amarillo Castle, yeah, it was pretty much an overdone thing where these people don't have the kind of money that it's going to take to maintain this property. So I don't know why but they wanted a nice big spread, so they bought it, and good luck with that. And then another one was from the 70s, and to me looked like a bomb shelter bunker. And then the one that won, that I thought might actually be the ultimate finalist, but it lost to the Philly one because I think it was a larger space, was another one in New Mexico they called it Blue, or I called it Blue Weird. And that one, again, was more of a normal mid-century house outdoors with weird decoration indoors. So I thought for sure that was a shoe-in. But the other one, I think, because it was a smaller space, was the one that got the nod. And then the final region was Great Lakes, where they went to Michigan for 3 houses. And the one that, again, another one that needed a demo was UFO. It was a cement thing with oblong, or I don't know, angled walls that had lots of windows. And some of these, or most of these, had some weird feature, like an ugly fountain or whatever the heck it was supposed to be, and, you know, inoperable fireplaces and hidden trapdoor rooms and places where you might fall through a floor, the usual kind of thing. So yeah, UFO thing, just another nightmare. I don't know why you'd buy this house, but they, you know, did, or whatever. The one that was the semi-finalist in this one was one that I just wrote carpet wallpaper. Saves time. I think it was another mid-century normal-ish house on the outdoors, and then when you got indoors, it was just a germ farm of nasty. Then the one that I'm glad it didn't win, because I didn't want them to tear it apart, but it was not a semifinalist. Carpet wallpaper, again, same with Blue Nightmare down here, and carpet wallpaper, I think, was one that I thought would had a good chance of being a finalist, because it's kind of in that money range, and it's kind of nice enough on the outside that they don't have to worry about the structure or the aesthetic or whatever, and the inside just needs a total overhaul. And obviously they didn't feel like doing that, so they didn't. The last one, though, I think should be a historical landmark. It was the boat-shaped house with all boat decor, a whole nautical. I didn't wear the hat for the video, but for those of you who haven't watched my nautical, it's one of the themes that I actually really do enjoy and embrace. You could pare it back from what they had done, but some of the features that these people hated were actually really nice, expensive furnishings and things that you would, you know, kill for. And another thing, again, these are just the wrong people for this house, and they're whining about it. It's like, no, this thing's over 100 years old. It was built to, to look like this on purpose. It's not your primary residence. It's your summer home on the water. So what are you complaining about? Oh, well, the couch doesn't fit by the TV because there's this pole. It's like, well, that pole isn't going anywhere because it's structural. That's why it's there. So even if you tear out all the boaty stuff, you still have the pole. So you're just complaining to complain. And I thought it looked cool, in a fun way without being an only child playground. And I thought, again, most of the nautical decor was perfectly fine, perfectly in line. Again, it was furniture and furnishings, not, a construction issue, because you already knew it was a boat with a deck and all that. So either you're tearing down the whole thing or you're not. Give me a break. But I loved it. Again, without having to be totally maximalist, you could pare back. Let me just say, I got old Whaler Jim here, right? From your New Bedford or whatever. I don't get endorsed by any of these, so I've always been kind of reluctant to show catalogs and things, but like I get stuff where, you can show the couches and rugs and whatnot and what you're supposed to mix and match. I haven't bought anything from any or most of these companies, I don't think, but yeah, it's good. Serving suggestions and whatnot. So most of the trend the last couple years, here's another one, and you'll see just by flipping through them, is typically a lot of neutrals, where they might have some other showier colors or flashier colors or whatever, but everything in the catalogs is typically very subdued. And I don't know how much of it's in my price range because I'm not really shopping for this kind of furniture right now or anything anyway. But you're not going to see a lot of stuff like this when they do the remodels in these spaces. They want to show off kind of what they can do, so they're showing pink refrigerators and other stuff when they're doing the redos. So you're seeing some stuff like in maybe one room they'll do kind of a natural room or a white room or something, and they're not as out there, or trying not to be quite as out there as what they're going into, but they still seem to have a bit of a, hey, this is the silly house show, therefore we need to be a little more over the top in the redo. Like, you're not going to see a bedroom like this in the final thing. And they didn't even do a bedroom this time. And then here's some outdoor stuff. They did a little bit of outdoor this time on the thing because she had kind of a patio area. It was in the front instead of the back. There's kind of a kitchen. So yeah, I'm not really endorsing this, but like bars and islands. So they did take out an island that was oversized, but then they put in a new island that was smaller but had a sink. I don't like islands like at all, much less necessarily want my sink in the middle of the floor, because then if I slop, there's water in areas where you don't want people to trip if you're not the only one walking around or whatever. I don't know. Stuff like that drives me nuts. And I didn't really get a good look at how they redid the bathroom. I don't know why I'm flipping through every single page of this. I've never done it this way before. I guess I won't show every single page. But like, none of this is, this is kind of textured wallpaper kind of idea with pillars for your bed headboard and thing. Whereas this, I think, is all furniture and mostly outdoor furniture. Yeah. More of a patio suggestion book. Stuff like that. Yeah, big. If you have a gigantic Hollywood pool, something. Classic recliners. So this is strictly beachy but not nautical. Another distinction I always make. Now the lake, I mean, I don't know anything about Michigan, but I'm pretty sure that being at the lake is like the whole point. Because the rest of Michigan is what, I don't know, Detroit, and that's about it. But see, if you already have a resort, maybe this is your catalog because you're a hotel, not a house. I don't know. But you know, stuff like that, ideas, right? I was going to bring in some other ones and I didn't. Right. And then what's this? More of the same, probably. Interiors and exteriors. That's an exterior, obviously. So yeah, I mean, like I said, you're seeing a lot of not necessarily wood, but sometimes wood. Different chair ideas. They're not as focused on this aspect of the thing on the program because they're picking it all for you and then just putting it in. So we didn't get to see the selection process of all of it. Oh yeah, like your doormats. More outdoor furniture. And again, another nice big splash page. So, you know, different options from different companies and whatnot. But this appears to be, oh yeah, pillows, throw pillows, tons of pillows. So yeah, this is mostly outdoors stuff again. Not all. Towels, cool stuff. All right. Okay, here's, yeah, pool. Not decorative pool stuff, but functional in pool stuff. But then here we got some interior. Okay, so some living room stuff, rugs, credenzas or whatever. Something like this I wish I had for my TV because I don't have any drawers and things. I just have a TV on a table kind of right now. Bathroom-ish on my table. So yeah, that's, you know. Again, this is not tearing off the carpet from the walls and the weird mirrors on the walls and all that kind of stuff. This is more of the furniture. Then this is like more knickknacks and expensive gift ideas, I guess, holiday stuff. There's some furniture kind of stuff. Okay, now this is the kind of stuff I would love to put in this particular room because, you know, instead of the $20 or $30 globe, wouldn't I love to have the 2400, or that's the telescope, sorry, the $3,200 globe. Yeah, sure. I'll just times the price by 10 and get that in here right now. But this is from like Park Avenue or something. Yeah. So when I'm, you know, not busy working on Wall Street, I'm sauntering down Park Avenue, checking out leather chairs and horsey trash buckets and whatnot. The horsey trash buckets are nice, but they are $100 a piece, roughly. So that's, there's a boat one. So if you want the nautical, and then there's this English writing style one. Either of those would suit me for different rooms, but there's both definitely more than I'm going to spend on a trash can, typically. And then here's your kind of wooden entryway bench, suitcase holder things kind of stuff. If you want your entryway to look kind of like a hotel room, but an elegant hotel room, you know, with old wood. And here's some kind of old wood and stuff. See, this kind of stuff there, definitely classy, definitely out of most people's price range that I know. Definitely not stuff that I want to disparage, but definitely, you know, stuff I don't necessarily aspire to own because by the time I get around to it, I don't know how much use I would get out of it. And then, yeah, so like this, you got kind of a more of a, what's that? Is that a credenza or a bookshelf or whatever? Where you got no, you don't have doors hiding your storage stuff. You got shelves, and then like a little podium thingy. That would be cool if I had a place to put it. So stuff like that you can get in Manhattan, I guess. And then somebody sent me this thing, which must have cost them a fortune to mail these out. And obviously we're not going to look at every single picture of this. RH Interiors. An homage to Japan. I love it already. Kyoto. I don't know what this couch has to do with Kyoto. It's made in Japan, or it's just supposed to look like something you might sit on in Japan. I have no idea. And then, some more couches that are probably pretty expensive. See if I can read this. Yeah, I think that's $2,000 for the lamp. And the swivel chair is something, $1,000. Oh, but there's a member price. Okay, so if you have to become a member to save $400 or something on the swivel chair. However that all works out. I don't know, I haven't looked into it. But it's got like 8 million pages with lots of suggestions and ideas. So, you know, you can check this company out and see if they do anything you like. Newport Beach, right down the street. Not my neighborhood, but I used to go to the surplus store there and ride my bike and up in Balboa Island and Corona Del Mar and all that. Yep. So the Art of Chagrin, whatever that is. And they got some like tables with some kind of symmetrical thing going on here. So if your house looks like a Greek museum where you showcase your pottery, but again, you're noticing a lot of browns and a lot of creams, right? That was kind of the point of me showing this, is we're seeing a lot of neutrals, a lot of neutrals. I don't know if we're going to see anything but neutrals. So again, but then once you've done that, you know, if you really wanted to, I think I've showed stuff like this before where I did the Pendleton stuff because it was natural wool and cotton instead of polyester. But I don't know about this company, but they do have bedding and other furnishing decor. So this is if you want your house to look like kind of Southwesty, not quite hunting lodge. The other book is a little more hunting lodge. Ranch bunkhouse, I guess. That's the word we're looking for. But so this is where we're getting more granular into actual themes. And I don't have every single book in here. I only have the cowboy one and the more Northwoodsy one. There's other companies that do other, but we're seeing a little bit more color, a little bit more playfulness, but still based on wood and neutrals and adobe again, kind of thing. Again, not going to look at every single page of this here, but that kind of stuff, it can be a little, I don't know, not necessarily child oriented specifically, but you may or may not want your stuff to be quite as themey as this, although some of it is definitely nicer than others. I don't have an issue with all of it. And then this one is similar to that, but more bears and deers and what's the other typical? I don't know, elk and moose, maybe moose, caribous, maybe, antlers, bear clocks, lots of bears. Not all bears, but let's see what else. Oh, well, 2 whole pages full of bears. So bear, This one's more moose, I think. Moose page. If I can keep it from getting too shiny. So yeah, a little bit, kind of like a lodge. So a lot of this stuff might be more for a guest house than your primary residence. I've talked about this in previous videos before, but we're journeying into, kind of knickknacks and lamps and throw rugs and welcome mats and some regular furniture. Like here's a kind of a dinette setting. And there will be some outdoor furniture likely too. And then wall hangings, of course, like your eagle and your mantle things. So this is when we've gotten past, we've already got the furniture. Now what are we putting on the furniture or around the furniture? Did I show this page already? Maybe not. Anyway, like I said, I'm not going to show every single book. I showed some of these books probably more than I should. But like I said, kind of the North Woods theme. So I guess that can be your Montana or your Maine, depending on your region-ish. But this, I don't have the full book. It's mostly more bedding and that kind of thing. But now here we got like hat racks and this kind of stuff. Oh, yeah. Okay, yeah. I have the pages out of order, but 2 whole pages of beachy stuff, a little bit of boaty stuff. And I've always, like I said, tried to make a real distinction sometimes between colorways. True boaty stuff is typically navy, blue, and white, not pastels, not sea foam, not coral or aqua or whatever. I don't know what we got going on here. Lamps and antique looking lamps, but they're new, old Persian kind of rugs and things. I should do 1 pages. Bookshelves, rugs and curtains. Everything's going to get messed up. Bedspreads, all that kind of thing. So more of the same as the previous, but less thematic. Except for this one we have, and if you didn't watch my clothing videos on the topic, I also have extensive safari clothing videos. So here's some of your safari decor. If you don't want beachy, you can be the African savannah. Yada, yada, yada. But yeah, I was always trying to explain to people the difference between like cottage grandma and, other things. If you want a true nautical motif, it's a bit more, this kind of thing. Like I said, that one house, there was almost nothing actually wrong with that house. You just got the wrong person in it, because I would have been in hog heaven just doing minor tweaks with what was in there. And then, of course, this is like sheets and towels and bedspreads and stuff again. This is almost everything I try to buy from this book is already sold out by the time I go to get it. And it's not typically on any real theme, but sometimes they'll have kind of funky patterns, but a lot of it also more solids. Like here's your towels or sheets, or rather that are they're towels too, but those are percale sheets in a variety of basic colors. And this book has some extra pages kind of shoved in it. And yeah, sateen bed, so a little bit more pastels and such. But if you were going true nautical, again, white. And they don't even have a dark enough blue here in this menu to qualify. You'd have to go with the gray or the lighter blue. Whereas, yeah, stuff like this. I got something similar from LL Bean. And it wasn't necessarily true navy, but pretty close. Here they call it sapphire, but I don't know how old this book is, if that's a current color or not. Don't quote me. But that kind of thing, if you were, again, doing boaty instead of beachy, you know, you can get away with almost any of them, depending on how you're playing it off the other stuff. But you can get a lot more powder blue, a lot more, again, you're having white decor with, you know, even something like simple like this stripes, this white with this navy stripes. But even red would work because you can do the red, white, and blue thing with nautical. Whereas with beachy, these other colors would be better, ivy or camel, aqua, yada yada. But again, that's sheets and towels. You know, that's kind of granular. Again, you could get away with just some white sheets. And then another company, a different company that I've never bought anything from. Why did it have these pages marked? Don't remember. Oh, never mind. They do have curtains in this one, and they do have chair cushions for your. I had already bought a chair cushion from somebody else though, so I didn't need this one. And then yeah, like your removable bathroom cabinetry and stuff instead of your built-ins. Again, white being a typical color for a lot of that kind of stuff. White being a very good coastal cottage, but then a lot of it will be this wrought iron kind of stuff. So not expensive or not terribly elegant, but not terrible storage ideas. But again, that's, you know, after you have your other larger issues squared away, not redoing the wallpaper and all that kind of thing. That's a totally separate conversation, which is more on theme of the actual program, though, because again, they're ripping carpet off places where you shouldn't have carpet, and tile in places, and mirrors in places, and mosaics made out of mirrors in places, and stuff like that. So kind of a fun show to watch, but not a house I would advise moving into. And this shirt is the blue one. I was in my photos. I haven't done a photo in like a month already or whatever. I had already photographed the green version of this. I think this one shrank a little bit in the wash, but it is a medium, so it's technically a size too small. But this is from back when medium almost fit large enough to be closer to an extra large, or at least a large. Nowadays, a medium I couldn't get on if I bought it from even the same company, probably. So I guess that's about it. I don't know if I covered. I mean, I was kind of showing books more than, like I said, I've ever done before, kind of thing. But you know, there's just suggestions. You know, again, the trend, the most noticeable trend in the books may not translate to what you're seeing in actual people's houses, but the overall trend is this still kind of old money, or what's the other term? Quiet luxury. But then some of the stuff is actual luxury, because if you're buying it from Park Avenue, it's not quiet luxury. It's just $3,000 for a lamp or whatever. So yeah, what's kind of in your budget? What's kind of in your theme? Obviously, if you have any questions, please feel free to leave them in the comments. That's kind of the whole point of doing this, is I can share what I consider my wisdom or my opinion, you know, in semi-informed opinion based on the content that, you know, I've absorbed that haven't always been able to apply. This room, not really a work in progress, more of a catch-all. So I just kind of tried to make it look cool for the, you know, the film aspect of it, and store, you know, extra shoes and whatever. I finally found that hat that I hadn't worn. From kind of my beachy coconut. It's not a trilby, so the brim's a little bit bigger, but it's a stingy brim more than a true fedora. So yeah, that's about it. That's 4th of July coming up. So obviously that's like a separate kind of a deal where you have a day where you might do some decoraty party kind of stuff, but it's not permanent decor. Or maybe you decorate for a month and leave it, you know, kind of the beginning of summer through the 4th of July, and then kind of redo some of it. Like I said, I don't really get into that kind of thing as much because that's more kind of temporary stuff. And, you know, I don't have, you know, all these clever ideas for how to serve different drinks on your table or whatever. Most of the kind of parties I've had weren't that kind of a garden party or whatever. But, you know, obviously there's plenty of videos about that kind of thing. If you're doing more than, you know, a kegger, you know, and you want it to be a little more. But the point of this video is, you know, more home decoration again than party favors. So we'll save that conversation. But if you know, again, if you had, you know, some tips or suggestions that you thought fit in that category, you know, go ahead and point it out. And I'll say if I like the idea or not or whatever. If anybody's going to get this far, which I doubt. Okay, signing off then, because it's much later than I thought I was going to be going anyway.